Have you ever wondered if you could learn a new skill, like speaking a new language or becoming a computer expert in a very short time? What if you could learn it much faster than you ever thought possible? Today, we're diving into an amazing book called Ultralearning: Master Hard Skills, Outsmart the Competition, and Accelerate Your Career by Scott Young. This book shares powerful ideas about how to learn anything quickly and deeply. It teaches you how to learn in a more aggressive, self-motivated, and strategic way. Hello, English learners, and welcome to English Journey. I'm your host, Celine, and I'm here to help you grow personally while mastering English. We release new videos every day to support you on your learning journey. Before we start, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. It helps us create more valuable content for you. Also, stay until the end for some key takeaways and a short quiz to test your understanding. What is ultralearning? Scott Young defines ultralearning as a special way of acquiring skills and knowledge. It's self-directed, meaning you guide your own learning, and it's intense, meaning you put a lot of focus and effort into it. It's an aggressive, self-motivated approach that enables people to quickly and efficiently master difficult skills. People who take this approach are called ultralearners. Think about Scott Young himself. He learned the entire 4-year MIT computer science course in less than a year, all by himself. He also taught himself to draw in a month and learned 4 new languages in 1 year by not speaking English. These are examples of ultralearning projects. They might seem difficult, but the book shows that anyone can use these strategies to achieve amazing results. Ultralearning is not just for big goals like learning a new language or a university degree. It can help you improve any skill, whether for personal growth or your career. In today's world, where jobs are changing quickly, ultralearning can help you learn new skills and stay competitive. As medium-skilled jobs face challenges from automation, workers need to adapt, upskill, and retrain. Ultralearners can get new skills without taking time off work for more education. This can help you develop hybridized skill sets, like being a librarian and a data analyst, or an accountant and a Mandarin speaker. The book Ultralearning gives 9 important principles. These principles are like a guide for your learning journey. Let's explore each one in simple terms. The 9 principles of ultralearning. 1. Meta-learning. Plan your learning journey. Imagine you want to go on a long hike across a country. Before you start, you need a map, food, and plans for problems. Learning a new subject is similar. You need to know your path before you begin. This first principle, meta-learning, is all about planning your learning journey before you start. It means learning how to learn. The idea is that you should not just start absorbing information randomly. You should first understand how information is structured in your chosen field. In this step, you ask, why are you learning this? What is your goal? What exactly do you need to learn? What are the most important parts? How will you learn it? What methods will you use? You should also think about possible bottlenecks. These are the parts that might slow you down. For example, if you want to speak Spanish, the most important thing to learn is speaking, and the most efficient way is to talk to people. If you're learning math, the most vital thing is solving problems, and the best way is to practice solving them. For languages, it's almost always how to speak the language, and speaking to people in the language. For math or engineering, it's almost always how to solve problems. On a wider scale, you must know which topics provide prior knowledge for other topics. For example, if you don't know high school algebra, there's no point learning calculus yet. To do meta-learning, you can create a meta-learning map. Break your topic into 3 parts. Concepts. What ideas do you need to understand? Facts. What information do you need to remember? Procedures. What actions or steps do you need to practice? Some projects, like learning a new programming language, will involve a mixture of all 3. Others, like perfecting a tennis serve, will mostly involve perfecting a procedure. You should focus your energy on the most important categories. Then, identify what might be difficult and think of ways to overcome those difficulties. For example, if your breakdown shows you need to memorize many facts, you might consider using spaced repetition software to make memorization easier. This software produces random memory tests. It's also helpful to benchmark. This means researching other people who have learned similar skills or looking at institutions that offer degrees in your field. Use their methods and equipment as a guide. You can use online course lists or syllabi to find essential resources, tools, and texts in the field. This planning phase should happen at the beginning of your project, but you can repeat it if needed. Scott Young suggests that meta-learning should take about 5% to 10% of your total learning time. Why is there a limit? Because too much planning can lead to procrastination. Planning your study and dreaming about being an expert is more fun than actually starting. So, set a hard deadline for when your pre-learning will end. This will ensure the research prepares you for your project without giving you an opportunity to procrastinate on actually starting. 2. Focus. Stay focused and avoid distractions. In our modern world, there are so many distractions. Phone notifications, social media, TV shows. But you don't have to let them stop your learning. The focus principle is about how to overcome distractions and stay alert while learning. It's crucial because without focused learning, everything will take more time, be less effective, and be less enjoyable. Being able to focus means your learning will be more effective and enjoyable. Scott Young suggests 3 main things to improve your focus. Eliminate external distractions. Turn off your phone, TV, and find a quiet place. Put your phone on airplane mode and switch off your Wi-Fi. Eliminate internal distractions. Deal with stress, worry, or thinking too much about being perfect. Train your focus. Practice focusing as a skill, perhaps through short periods of intense work, meditation, or consistent self-reflection and improvement. One simple trick to start is to set a timer for a very short time, like 3 minutes. Tell yourself you can stop when the timer goes off. Often, you'll gain enough momentum to keep working. You can also use the Pomodoro technique. Set a timer for 20 minutes and work without stopping during this time. When the timer goes off, take a 5-minute break, then get back to work for another 20 minutes. To keep your focus strong, avoid autopilot mode. This is when you feel busy but are not truly engaged with your task, making you less likely to remember new material. Instead, try interleaving. Deliberately alternate between materials and modes of learning. Ideally, tackle your project in short, regularly spaced sessions. If you have 10 hours to study Russian, aim for 5 2-hour sessions rather than 1 10-hour session. Focus on a different aspect or skill set, like vocabulary or grammar, in each session. Finally, pay attention to your mental arousal, which is your level of energy and alertness. High arousal creates intense, yet narrow focus, perfect for repetitive tasks, like practicing musical scales. Low arousal generates a more relaxed and wide-ranging type of focus, best suited to lateral thinking and forming connections, which are necessary for creative tasks such as music composition. Try to match your energy level to your task for the best results. 3. Directness. Learn by doing what matters. Many people learn French in school for years but cannot have a simple conversation in Paris. This is because of a failure to transfer what they learned in one situation, classroom, to another, real life. The Directness principle says, you should tailor your learning project to match the context in which you plan to use the skill. It means doing what is important, not just what is comfortable. The problem with formal education is that it sets up an indirect path between the learning context and the target environment, the context in which learned skills and knowledge are actually applied. Rote learning French vocabulary in a high school classroom is very different from asking a Parisian how to get to the metro station. Ultralearners know to keep the path between their learning environment and their target environment as direct as possible. The most direct way to learn something is to do it. If you want to speak a language, speak it. If you want to learn coding, write code. This learning by doing approach is called project-based learning. It puts the skill you're learning directly in your target environment, so no transfer is necessary. One strong way to use directness is immersive learning, where you fully immerse yourself in the target environment. For example, a French student might spend 3 months in Paris. If you cannot travel, you can still use the flight simulator method. Create a learning environment that is as close as possible to the real situation. If you can't spend 3 months in France, for example, try a Skype tutorial with a French speaker. Often we try to improve everything a little bit, but usually only a few specific things are holding us back. We do this because it seems to take less effort in the short term, but it wastes time in the long run. Ultralearning focuses on putting conscious thought into what you practice directly so you can reach your goals efficiently and actually achieve what you set out to achieve. 4. Drill. Practice your weaknesses. Intensely. Think of elite athletes or piano players. They all use drilling to improve their skills and maintain their competitive edge. This principle is about breaking down big topics into smaller parts. Then, you find the part you are worst at and practice it intensely. This helps you improve your overall performance. You can think of it as finding and fixing bottlenecks. A bottleneck is something you are not good at, but it is also key to your progression. For example, if you struggle to speak Spanish, you might find your vocabulary is the bottleneck. Even if your pronunciation is bad, people might still understand you, so pronunciation is not an immediate bottleneck. Therefore, you identify your bottleneck to be your vocabulary. An hour spent drilling vocabulary will be multiple times more valuable than an hour spent elsewhere. It's important not to start your project by drilling. Instead, use a direct then drill approach. Start with direct practice, like speaking Spanish or writing code. Identify what you need to improve, then drill that specific weakness, and then go back to direct practice until it becomes necessary to drill again. This process forms a cycle. Begin with direct practice, identify a weakness, correct it with specific drilling, and then return to direct practice. Repeat this until you've mastered your desired skill. To make the most of your drilling, apply it to a rate-determining step. This is the step that unlocks the next level of knowledge or opens up the broadest range of applications. For example, if you understand accounting theory but lack Excel skills to use it, learning Excel would be your rate-determining step, so you'd focus your drilling there. You can design your drills in different ways, depending on the area you want to drill. Time slicing. Isolate one step of a larger process and repeat it until perfect. If you want to perfect your golf game, for example, you could time slice by drilling your drive shot. Cognitive components. Separate your skill into different mental parts and drill each one separately. For a language, you could drill vocabulary, pronunciation, or spelling. Copycat method. If you're working on something creative, like writing or painting, copy a piece of work you admire very closely. This helps you learn the process before creating your own. 5. Retrieval. Test yourself. Often. In traditional education, you learn, then you take a test. But the truth is, the testing phase itself is what provides most of the learning. The retrieval principle means constantly testing your ability to recall information. It's pointless learning new skills if you're unable to retrieve them quickly and efficiently. Many learners prefer to review material by reading it again. However, studies show that recall, trying to remember facts and concepts from memory, is much more effective for long-term learning retention. When you can easily process or understand something you've just read, you might think you've learned it. This is called judgment of learning. We tend to gravitate towards passive review strategies because they confirm our perception that we're learning successfully. But perception isn't everything. Struggling to recall something in the short term actually helps you remember it better in the long term. Experts call this desirable difficulty. The difficulty posed by recall is ultimately desirable, as it maximizes our chances of retaining what we've learned. Here are some ways to use retrieval in your study sessions. Flashcards. Use them to test your knowledge of discrete chunks of information in a randomized way. Or use SRS software where the randomization is optimized by an algorithm. Free recall. After studying, sit down with a blank piece of paper and challenge yourself to write down everything you remember from what you've learned, in as much detail as possible. Questioning. Instead of just writing notes, pose questions that force you to recall the answer. For example, instead of writing, "The Battle of Hastings took place in 1066, write, "When did the Battle of Hastings take place?" Every time you go over your notes, you'll be forced to recall what you've learned. Challenge yourself. For a more concrete recall-based challenge, set yourself a task that will test everything you've learned in your Ultralearning project so far. This helps you recall specific skills and concepts in a targeted way, as you need to use them. 6. Feedback. Learn from your mistakes. No matter how skilled you are, you need feedback on your progress if you want to improve. This principle is about getting information on how well you are doing and using it to adjust your performance. You also need to learn how to tell the difference between different levels of feedback. There are different types of feedback. Outcome feedback. This simply confirms whether or not you've reached a desired outcome. For example, if an audience applauds after your public talk, it can be encouraging, but it's hard to get more information from this type of feedback. Informational feedback. This gives you more to work with by alerting you to the fact that you're doing something wrong. If audience members walk out at a certain point during your talk, they're giving you informational feedback. This kind of feedback is useful for highlighting problem areas and isolating your mistakes. Corrective feedback. By far the best kind of feedback. It tells you what you're doing wrong and how to fix it. Imagine a professional speechwriter in the audience who gives you notes on what went well, what didn't land, and how you can improve. This is far more instructive than outcome feedback. When you get feedback, focus most on corrective feedback over informational feedback and informational feedback over outcome feedback. To make sure you get enough feedback, remember to fail for feedback. If you're not pushing yourself to the point where you fail, you stop yourself from getting useful informational or corrective feedback. Pushing beyond your limits will give you helpful feedback, and acting on that feedback will, in turn, extend your limits. Also, seek meta-feedback. This means getting feedback on how well your learning methods are working. A simple way to test your learning methods is to track your learning rate. For example, time how long it takes you to correctly complete a math problem. If your learning rate isn't tracking upward, act on this negative feedback by revisiting your learning methods. By asking for feedback and focusing on corrective and informational feedback, you can constantly adjust and improve your performance. 7. Retention. Remember what you learn. You spend a lot of time learning, so how do you make sure you remember it? The retention principle gives tips on how to hold on to what you've spent so much time learning. The most productive strategy you can employ is to settle on a memorization system and incorporate it at regular, closely spaced stages throughout your project. It's tempting to try and memorize everything at once, or cram. If you do this, you may see short-term results. For long-term retention, though, it's best to space out your memorization sessions. But don't space them too far apart. If you leave it too long, you'll start to see diminishing returns. Ideally, make time for memorization a few days per week. For facts or simple concepts, use a spaced repetition system, SRS. Flashcards are a good example, which test your knowledge of discrete chunks of information in a randomized way. Alternatively, Use SRS software where randomization is optimized by an algorithm. For more complex concepts, spaced repetition can be equally effective. Here, your focus should be on regularly repeating key processes rather than just recalling information. To do this, switch out the flashcards for a refresher project. Test your retention by regularly putting your skills into practice. You could even try overlearning, pushing yourself beyond your current skill level. For example, if you want to master the basics of algebra, pushing yourself to learn some intermediate formulas could actually help you retain beginner-level formulas more effectively. A study showed that extending your learning into a higher skill set not only challenges your abilities, but also improves your retention of lower-level skills. For more procedural projects, things you do step by step, the most effective retention method is to simply remember by doing, repeat a procedure enough times, and your body will start to automate it. 8. Intuition. Understand deeply, not just memorize. The intuition principle deals with intuition and pattern recognition as ways of solving problems. It's about true understanding of a topic versus a superficial ability to recall facts, and being true to yourself about what you truly know and understand. Think of a brilliant physicist like Richard Feynman. He was known for his uncanny intuition. He had a knack for looking at a complex problem and seemingly finding the solution out of thin air. The technical term for this is intuitive expertise, and it comes from a deep understanding of the subject, which enabled him to intuit unexpected connections and patterns. It takes time and patience to build this level of deep understanding, but you can accelerate the rate at which you acquire it using a few simple strategies. Go back to basics. Feynman was famous for asking stupid questions and would frustrate his students by asking about basic concepts. He knew that it's impossible to become an intuitive expert until you know the foundational concepts of your field inside out. Embrace the struggle. Resist taking shortcuts in your learning. If there are two ways to arrive at a solution, choose the longer, more involved one. A longer study of chess strategy is better for deep understanding than just learning a few classic moves. Use a struggle timer. Don't give up immediately when things get really challenging. Instead, force yourself to sit with every challenge or obstacle for at least 10 minutes before you look for a simpler solution. Prove things for yourself. Look at the theories, ideas, and processes that expert practitioners in your field have created, then try and prove them or replicate them for yourself. You're not trying to disprove their work. You're trying to understand the procedure and thought patterns behind it. Accepting ideas just because experts say they're true gives you a shallow understanding. To achieve deep knowledge and intuitive expertise, it's better to work through those ideas for yourself. One powerful method mentioned is the Feynman technique. It's very simple. Write down a concept or problem, then write out an explanation of it as if you are teaching someone else. When you get stuck, go back to the book or source. The act of explaining something has the effect of creating a deeper intuitive understanding of a topic, more so than just listing facts or applying a formula. 9. Experimentation. Find your own path. As your skill at a topic develops, the number of educational resources available to you tends to diminish as you move beyond all the beginner material. At this point, you need to be creative and experiment. This principle is about finding your own unique style and path to success. Experts at the peak of their performance tend to develop their own unique styles, and there is no one best style. Essentially, you have to start experimenting to find your own path. Think about Vincent van Gogh. He only began to learn how to paint at age 26 after a failed career. He wasn't naturally talented and started very late. However, by his death at age 37, just 11 years later, he had created some of the greatest paintings in the world. This came about firstly by his prodigious work ethic, but secondly by the fact that he experimented with hundreds of different styles, many of which were complete disasters, until he eventually found his own. Experimentation is Ultralearning's secret ingredient. The technique can take you from being accomplished to being a true innovator. If you're wondering where to start, one technique you can use is to copy, then create. First, emulate someone else's work to learn their processes and concepts. Then, use that as a stepping stone towards testing your own ideas. For example, if you're learning how to cook Korean food, find a great recipe and follow it exactly. Once you've got a handle on it, you can start to improvise with the process and flavor profile. You can also impose some constraints on your experimentation. This might seem counterintuitive, but limiting your creativity can actually help it blossom. Working within strict limits can help you shake off your usual habits and force you to try something new. For example, if you're a budding artist or poet, you might try painting a picture using only shades of green or writing a verse without using the letter E. You might be surprised by how your creativity flourishes when it's limited. Finally, aim for the unexpected by hybridizing your materials, techniques, or skills to find your hidden superpower. Combining two seemingly different elements can lead to great results. Before Scott Adams created the office comic strip Dilbert, he was an engineer with a passion for doodling. He wasn't the best engineer or artist, but when he found a way to combine his unique skill set, he ended up creating one of the world's best-known comic strips. Experimentation truly pays off. Key takeaways. Here are the main lessons from Ultralearning. Ultralearning is intense, self-directed learning that helps you master skills quickly and efficiently. Plan your learning, meta-learning, before you start, understanding the why, what, and how. Allocate about 5 to 10% of your total project time to this. Focus deeply by removing external and internal distractions and training your attention through techniques like the Pomodoro method and interleaving. Be direct by practicing the skill in the way you intend to use it, ideally by doing projects or immersing yourself in the target environment. Drill your weaknesses by breaking down skills, identifying bottlenecks, and intensely practicing the parts you struggle with, using a direct-then-drill approach. Use Retrieval by constantly testing yourself and recalling information from memory, which is much more effective for long-term retention than just reviewing. Seek feedback, especially corrective feedback, to understand your mistakes and how to improve, and don't be afraid to fail for feedback. Strategically space out your learning, retention, to remember information for the long term, avoiding cramming and considering overlearning. Build deep understanding, intuition, by challenging yourself, asking basic questions, proving concepts, and embracing the struggle, like with the Feynman technique. And experiment to find your unique approach and innovate once you have a strong foundation, using methods like copy then create and imposing constraints. If you found this summary helpful, please remember to like this video and subscribe to English Journey for more content. Now it's time for a short quiz. Answer these questions in the comments below. Quiz time. 1. What does self-directed mean in the definition of ultralearning? 2. What is one way to eliminate external distractions when you are trying to focus? 3. Why is directness important when learning a new language? 4. What is a bottleneck in the context of the drill principle? 5. What is the main difference between review and recall for learning? Thank you for watching. I hope this summary of Ultralearning has inspired you. Remember, books are powerful tools to grow your English and your life. Keep learning, keep growing, and I'll see you in the next video.